Welcome to Wizard Team, a Black magical podcast for Black magical stories.
Hi everyone, it's Bayana, Robyn, and Porshèa embarking on a journey through the many fantasy stories written by and about Black people. Currently, we're reading Amari and the Night Brothers by B.B. Alston. Today, we're discussing Chapter 11.
Previously on Wizard Team, so Amari's a magician, and the directors are not happy about it. They kind of had a meeting to kind of figure out what to do about the fact that she's a magician. Some wanted to put her in jail. Some wanted to experiment on her. Those with sense decided that she should be allowed to continue on in the camp. I guess some wanted to send her home too, which I think is less
wipe her memory and send her
compared
home
to the other ones. Well, wipe her memory. Yes. Which is less extreme, but also not great. And then they eventually came to the conclusion, thanks to a sensible few, to let her continue on in the camp while they kind of monitor.
I hate that the
situation
person who is
instead of jumping.
tagged as sensible came to the meeting without his goddamn body. But he is but it's true that
senses in your brain,
the participant,
senses in your head. He brought the necessary. He brought the necessary tools.
He was thoughtful.
Maybe that's maybe if he had his full body, he would be too distracted. He wouldn't have the
powerful
sense of oneness of just that one brain. But it also is sucky that how are you going to unveil a magician in your world and then make them unaware of it. However, everyone who that happened in front of, including people who were in the room and also the reporters who have it in the newspapers, are gonna know this person.
I didn't even think of
that. It's
a
magician. They're walking around unknowing, and you're just putting them in this what? How would that have helped at all?
That never even crossed my mind. That is the worst.
Me neither. But that's
vigilante or
that's just setting her up for everything.
I feel like it was a movie. It was a movie. I think it was also a book, but I didn't read it, and I can't even really remember the movie. Minority Report, where they would lock people up for pre-crimes, crimes that they thought about committing. That is what that just that is wild. That is no, not at all. Sense. They would have to wipe everyone's memory of Amari Peters.
Yeah.
And also all their records that they have that are published, try to find every single ever copy that was ever made that someone has in their house or wherever.
Thankfully, they didn't do that, and Amari's allowed to stay.
Yeah,
she will be monitored. They don't really discreetly, but they don't really say exactly what that means practically. But she will be watched. She knows she'll be watched, and the director tells her to make sure that their trust and faith in her is in the right place, which is you don't have faith or trust in her because you're monitoring her, and you had to be argued and led to that point.
Yeah. And then she's
prove you belong here, which she did when she got nominated by her brother, who you hold up as a beacon.
Hello.
She got a moonstone badge.
How about you prove that
you belong here?
Yeah. But how about you prove that as adults, y'all have some semblance of understanding of I don't know how to keep a 12-year-old safe with her mother who has her one adult guardian unaware of what she's getting into. Perhaps you should be the ones to prove yourselves. Not Amari.
Again,
perhaps.
Amari's Mama Peter, Renee, still doesn't know what's going on. We should just have that at the top of every recap. Okay, so we enter chapter 11. And after the meeting, Agent Magnus escorts Amari to an elevator named Whispers, which is surprisingly loud, shouting out the name of every floor that they pass.
I know that we discussed it is AI, so yikes. But I like that they have different personalities. I think that's adds to the world.
But were they programmed that way, or did they just, like, become some kind of
Either way,
sentience
it's
where they have built
terrifying.
personalities as time
Yeah,
has
I
gone
don't
Either
on?
way.
Yeah.
know. I think I kind of think of it as like, because there's so much magic, there has to be some kind of effect
Yeah.
that both
Like
have on each
cross
other. So like if
yeah.
you're just around all of that, I could see it not being the intention, but then that's just kind of
Yeah.
how it
I mean, I
is.
think the thing with
You know what I mean?
AI is there is always a level of sentience in AI because it learns as it goes, like it learns from its environment and stuff like that. The
Mhm.
thing that we're dealing with right now is like the Turing test of like when do they learn so much? Like sentience in the sense of you could be fooled into thinking this was a human. Um I think that's like where we're at with AI, which is again terrifying. Do these people not watch movies? Um so Whispers drops him off at the special events floor, and the chief director comes over the intercom and says, "This is your chief director speaking. With regard to this morning's unfortunate event, we are still working out the particulars of what exactly occurred and why. Rest assured that once we have this information, we will be forthcoming with an explanation. In the meantime, trainee Amari Peters is to be treated no differently from any other trainee. That is all." And like
It's the same
the
as like
othering of
the,
Elsie.
we'll wipe her memory and let it and see what happens kind of thing. Like it's just not
See, I got when she
a
pulled Elsie
good.
up on when Elsie got her badge and she was like, not only
Mm,
is Elsie a gold badge or gold star or whatever, but she's also not fully human. Like, girl, mind your
right.
business.
It's
Just
just
like
like,
me. We are
but
girl bossing
yeah.
together.
Yeah, except this is like the in
Yeah.
terms of tone. Like I do get that you do have to explain what happened because everyone else kind
Everyone
of
was there. It happened in
understands
public.
everyone was there, everyone understands the like ramifications of there being another magician. Like it, everything went up, it was an uproar at the time. So I do understand like giving some kind of explanation, but it also just felt like it put her on the spot in a way that I think that they could have. There's no like professional, like what is it, like teacher development or like real pedagogy here. They're just
Well, I mean,
like,
like
we're gonna let's announce
even
to
beyond that,
everyone. I don't know. It just
there needs to be like a PR wing and like how you yeah.
there's no PR, but then there's also no care and like consideration of the fact that this is a child. So like the way
Ethics.
that you say yes, like we were talking about last episode, like it's just the way that you present that
Right.
information. I think needed to be handled differently than like
And I think that it would
that.
also like be for me important to say that like Amari Peters has done nothing wrong. And
Right.
we have found no like you can still say that we're um still working out the particulars of what exactly occurred. You can say that, but you can say like but what we do know is that Amari has done nothing wrong and will remain with the program, and if you have any questions, feel free to ask your, I don't know, hall monitor or whoever, even though Bertha is probably not the one you want to send them to, but still, you know, put the onus on like talking to someone in the bureau and not on Amari. I also
For this part, I had questions. I was like, what are like we are still working on particulars, like what exactly occurred and why? Like which part are you talking about? Amari's like illusion of like the glass breaking and y'all like making it clear that she like it was an illusion and not actually her breaking anything? Or the fact that she's a magician? Like what are you trying to explain and how are y'all gonna explain it away? Like what are you actually trying? Are you trying to cover it up? Or are you actually trying to like tell people the truth about what is the mystery? Like we need an explanation for why Amari is a magician. Like what is it? Like what are you committing
I
yourself
think
to
it's also
explaining
interesting
later?
too because they say rest assured that once we have this information we will be forthcoming with an explanation, but like they've already shown through the way that they treated like Quentin's disappearance and magicians in general, that they are not the most forthcoming group. And then these, by and large, are trainees. They're not members of the Bureau. So it's very easy to think that they could quickly say, like, we don't actually owe you a full explanation until you join the Bureau or whatever that is. So, and then even seeing how they dealt with like Elsie and like the two roommates that refused to room with her because she's a were-dragon. Like, how do they know that she's a were-dragon? Did Elsie like let that information out, or did you like? I feel like you should.
Did Bertha? Bertha was like, "Oh, just so
and,
you
like,
know, like
it's
your
not
room is
and,
one with a were-dragon,
Mm-hmm.
and we have to tell you because your parents would be upset if we
and
didn't
I think
tell
that like
you."
I don't see an issue with telling people that like Elsie's a were-dragon or telling people like Amari's a magician and needs to stay, but it's like Bayana said, a lot of it is the how and the framing, which is going to like really impact their experience. So Magnus,
and like how well the institution is actually like trying to help the situation rather than just like scapegoat the person that is different.
So Magnus says they were the ones who wanted to treat you differently in the first place. Bunch of superstitious clucks. They'd jump off the roof if someone told them the building was unlucky. And I kind of appreciate this statement as like superstition and like a failed ideology, because what we talked about last week is like the Bureau has come up with this very like with no nuance, very cut and dry, black and white. If you're a magician, you're evil or you're bad, and not really thinking about the cause and effect, or the fact that like the magicians that they know of, these two Moreau brothers, are evil and bad and somehow stole, or however we, a lot of this is like mythology at this point and a bit of propaganda, but like we don't really understand how magicians happen naturally, or how or what that is. Like the entire Bureau is set upon the fact that like humans have a magic potential, but they need Merlin's crystal ball to unlock and enhance that potential. And so any human in the known world has some level, or could possibly have some level of magic, right? Anything from extraordinary organizational skills to like Amari being an illusionist. But the Bureau has decided the only way that they can tap into that is through this one thing that Merlin designed a millennia ago, or however long, probably not a millennia, but like time ago. And then they stopped like investigating or figuring out why. Well, we think, because there are departments that they won't tell you what they're studying or whatever. But and that's the story that's been told. So like I do kind of think I appreciate Magnus saying like superstition, because it is true, and we kind of mentioned like the only reason why Amari is deemed dangerous or extremely illegal is because they concluded that. Like this is actually a really great opportunity to see what a magician could be without any interference by the Moreau brothers, but they've already decided.
Yeah, they're not seeing it as an opportunity. They see the magician as the common denominator instead of the Moreau brothers themselves as like the reason why these people have historically not been good. Or even themselves as like a thing too, because if you're persecuting them and you're automatically deciding that they're evil and they haven't actually done anything to show that, then like I don't know, maybe at some point they're like, you know what? How about I just get revenge? Because y'all aren't gonna let me do what I want to do. Like, what if there's a magician out there who really wanted to be in the Department of Licenses and Records, and they were like, I could revolutionize this whole system and like make sure y'all are really organized and like on point, and they were like, no, you're evil.
And I think
like, fine, I'm gonna go be a secretary for the Moreau brothers then.
And I think we've talked about this, and this is like sociology like 101. Like this is like the thing.
We're the Knight brothers. I don't know if it's
the Knight brothers. But this is like literally like one of the first things that you, and it always when I got to college and I took a lot of sociology classes, like was super frustrating to me about like systemic problems is like if you disenfranchise people, if you take away their ability to participate or get ahead in like the main system, the only recourse they have is to go outside of the system, right? Like if you put people in food deserts, the only recourse they have to eat is like fast food. You cannot blame them for a rise in diabetes. Like you did that, you know what I mean? Or like there is a clear reason. If you cut people off from being able to make money and they turn to crime, that's a clear cause and effect, right? It's just like it's very clear. And so this is one of those moments where you're like, what's not clicking to the powers that be? So we get my oh, go ahead.
But I mean, the thing about the powers that be is that they don't want things to change. They just want to maintain power, so they don't really care. But also the fact that, like, for me, I was thinking, so in that lane of thoughts, this kind of felt like Magnus making this comment about them being superstitious or whatever. Like this, it kind of feels like it's like an excuse for their prejudice. Like, oh, they're just like superstitious. They're always like unfailingly and like unflinchingly just superstitious, and it comes, and I feel like it's like not actually airing out the like actual prejudice that is inherent in how they treat magicians based on two men.
Yeah, but I think, and this is where I was talking about with like the sociology and stuff, like sometimes people will internalize the mythology and the mythos and like the like we see like these people are lazy, right? And like that's all, and they don't actually do, like sometimes we're so removed in time from the like setup of the system and the people that continue to uphold it. Not everyone, I think that like, you know, everyone understands these things to a different level, but a lot of people will uphold something because they believe in the mythos or whatever was being told to them, and they do not interrogate further, right? They believe magicians are evil, but never once do they have like the intellectual curiosity to go, well, why? Like you ask that one question and it all starts to unravel, right? But like there are a lot of people, it seems, upholding this magicians are evil thing because that's what they know and that's what has been told and that's the story that is passed down, and they do not question it. So I think one thing that this is like one of my favorite parts of this chapter. So Agent Magnus says, well, Amari thanks him for having her back. And he says, I'm not going to lie. I'd rather the chief send you home. I don't say that to be mean. I just want you to be perfectly clear what you're signing up for. The Moreau's awful deeds are well documented, as are the past 700 years of magician crimes in our world. People are going to form opinions and say nasty things about you based on nothing more than what you are. Are you sure you're prepared for that? And then Amari smiles at him in Black Girl. She says, or she thinks, being a Black kid from the projects makes Mr. Jensen feel the need to watch her extra closely every time she comes into his store, or how surprised the scholarship interviewers were that she could speak so well. People assume stuff about you based on things you cannot change about yourself. So I just do my best to prove them wrong, to be the person they're not expecting. Amari Peters, changing minds one person at a time. What do you need? She don't even know. I love that like paragraph, that section of this chapter, because I think that that's really something that like isn't articulated a lot, but is very present in the minds of like a lot of Black kids, marginalized kids, especially those that are not only marginalized but like then gifted, right? Like I don't know how many times someone has told me I was articulate growing up, and then realizing that that was like not the compliment that they thought they were, or like how surprised people were that like I liked the things I liked, or I read the things I read, or whatever. And I'm sure that like a untold number of people listening to this have also had that experience. And it's just like I've never heard it articulated in such a like really like
distinct way,
thoughtful and like distinct. Yeah.
I felt like this is the point of these books, like, or the series. And so I do think it's nice that we get that spelled out pretty early on. It's one of those things, honestly, within like fantasy, but then like especially in urban fantasy, and then especially in lots of series that we know, like of like how a lot of white authors will use made up marginalizations to either explore injustice or to like explore their own fear of being treated the way that like marginalized people are treated in real life, and just kind of ignore the actual like real world systems and of oppression. And so I think this was interesting in that like it's just a compounded thing. There's like an
It's
intersection
just one more
there
for
because
her.
it's just one more thing for her, which doesn't make it right. It doesn't make it like she shouldn't have to know how to navigate these things at 12 years old, but it's very real. And so I definitely appreciated that as like someone who read a lot as a kid and didn't really get to see that in fantasy books, right? And the fact that like a lot of kids can read that now and get both the fantasy part and also get the like very real part that is like that they can resonate with and that actually feels like it's been written with them in mind, you know?
Yeah, I think so many times, like you're saying, when this kind of sentiment is written by a white author, it's written like a oh my goodness, right? And like as a Black reader, you're reading it like, I mean,
That's a Tuesday,
right? Like, okay, I don't see anything special here, and so yeah, I think that is, it's really great that it's spelled out, or it's laid out this way, and that you get Amari's reaction to it being that's a Tuesday. Like, that's not, was that supposed to scare me, or are we just talking about things that happen every day? You know, we're talking about days that end in Y. So Amari responds, "I'm prepared. I've been practicing my whole life." And Agent Magnus gives a small nod, and then takes them down into the Grand Theater, where Guy in a gray suit rushes over to Agent Magnus and says it's almost time. Agent Magnus is getting ready to leave Amari, and Amari says, she needs to make something clear. For as long as she gets to stay, she's going to be searching for her brother, whether Agent Magnus helps or not. And Agent Magnus says, Quentin would much rather you stay safe. He cared about you. You're all used to talk about. And consider how Quentin's going to feel if he manages to get himself found, only to discover that something terrible has happened to his little sister because she went looking for him. He would be devastated.
One thing I like love about this book, I guess it's like another comparison to like other fantasy books like in this, or other books like in this genre and like age group, is like usually the kids are sneaking around. So like when I first read this book, I was just like, it was like kind of jarring to me, and not in a bad way, but just more like I'm used to kids just like kind of trying to get around. And like, it's not that she's not trying to get around the adults, because clearly they're like they're not like interested in helping her, at least at this point. And so, but still, just like the way that she's just like, this is what I'm doing. And like, so if you see me over here, like, that's what I'm doing. I think it's just like very interesting, like, especially for her as a character, to not be like, I'm gonna sneak around. She's like, no, y'all know why I'm here.
And I think that that's like something that is really interesting, from Amari's perspective, of them being very explicitly saying like, we're gonna watch you. is, I think, her saying, like, recognizing that she's gonna have more attention on her, and so just being like, cool, this is what I'm doing. I'm not even gonna try to hide it from you. But I'm not gonna stop either. And so I wonder about, like, if they wouldn't have said that she was going to be under extra, like, monitoring. I wonder if she would have tried to, like, go behind their back, because it felt like when she got there, she wasn't going to be as upfront, and she was going to try to, like, have this, like, quiet investigation about where Quentin is. And then Elsie just, like, read her aura and was like, I know what you got going on. And so she was like, all right, I can't hide that from you. And then Agent Fiona read her intention. So she's like, okay, so it won't be a quiet investigation. Cool. So I don't know, but I have a sense that, like, that was kind of her intent, to sneak around. And then she was like, well, that's not going to happen, but I'm not going to stop what I'm doing. So I'm going to pivot and just make it plain.
Yeah.
I think it helps that before she got here, all the things she tried to do in the dark were immediately taken away from her. Like, 'cause they just could not happen. Like, she tried to sneak out of her house without the neighborhood catching her. That backfired. She tried to get downtown in that ugly suit without getting clowned. That didn't happen. Like, so it's like, I feel like at this point she's like, you know what? I can't even keep nothing to myself. It's fine. It's fine. Yes. I'm going after Quentin. Just so you know. We're all on the same page now, right? Okay. Like, it helps that, like that kind of, I could see her just being like, oh, well, like, clearly every time I try to do something in, like, stealth mode, it's not happening. So let's just do what we gotta do here.
It's like, just let y'all know. So if you see me somewhere that you think I shouldn't be, you know what it is.
Right.
Just a blanket, like.
And it's also for her safety as a Black girl. She's like, look, I know how y'all treat me. I know how it is already. So don't be trying to play, she's Amari's a thief or some other, like, Black thing they want to, like, stereotype they want to ascribe to her. Like, no, Amari is trying to figure out where her brother is. Thank you very much.
What are we doing today? Same thing we're doing every day, Pinky. We're trying to find out where Quentin is. So Amari says, like, Agent Magnus just dropped a truth bomb in my face and then walked away. And so she's feeling a little guilty, right? Like, yeah, Quentin would be upset if something happened to me. Immediately, she goes into the Great Hall. Elsie has been, is waving her over because she saved a seat for her in the back, which is, like, best friend behavior. I'm going to sit in the back because I'm going to be able to see when Amari comes in, and I'm going to save her a seat.
She's such a good friend.
Elsie says...
On top of being a dragon. I love that for her.
Wizard Team is brought to you by Black Nerds Create, a collective providing content through the lens of critical and creative fandom. If you want to support or partner with BNC on projects like Wizard Team, let's build. Find out how at blacknerdscreate.com/support.
This episode is brought to you by Tic Tac. Close your eyes and take a ride with new Tic Tac Citrus Adventure. Awaken your senses with harmonies of sour and tangy fruit flavors. Picture the vibrant trio of mandarin, lemon, and lime as each flavor mingles to create a refreshing symphony. Pick up a pack and dive into new Tic Tac Citrus Adventure. Visit @TicTacUSA on social to share the good vibes.
At Black Nerds Create, we love all things fandom and creation, and we especially love fantasy. That's why we're excited for our newly named Black Magical History Month coming in February. Black Magical History Month is our 6th annual celebration of Black stories, characters, and fans across different fantasy media. Get ready for a month of digital events, challenges, and community turn-ups all across social media. To stay up to date and get more information, go to blacknerdscreate.com.
She says, your aura is yellow again. What happened? And then she's like, are you really a magician? And she says, I think so, an illusionist. And Elsie says, well, if anybody gives you mean looks, just let me know and I'll, Amari, not breathe fire on them. I read that with a very Gen Z, not the fire breath.
No, but I read it like not breathe fire on them.
Right.
You ain't got it.
Girl. You ain't got it.
You gonna
like,
make a
like, what are you gonna
do? Invention?
Right.
Exactly. What you gonna do? You gonna breathe hard,
you
but
just
not
gotta
have
like
fire?
not brush
Like,
your teeth
I
for a
see
couple
you,
days
but
and then
we
breathe.
both know
That kind of fire? Is that what you're talking about?
Right.
Yeah. And then
Right.
Elsie lets her know, I'm working on shifting, so just you wait. Like, don't count me out. Fire breath is on the table. It's on the menu.
It's imminent.
And
it's imminent.
She says, if you can handle rooming with a girl who could turn into a dragon at any time, I can handle being friends with a baby magician. I'm really glad they're letting you continue on. And I just love the baby magician thing. So Elsie then explains to her that they're in the Great Hall or whatever it's called, for a presentation from each department explaining what they do and why they should choose them to like intern with or like do the camp with. So it's that 1001 careers pamphlet all over again. So Amari hasn't missed much. She missed the Department of Supernatural licenses and records, nearly putting everyone to sleep. And then director Rub-ish from Department of Half Truths and Full Cover-Ups. Rubbish. Rub-ish. That one, I felt like not super clever, like very clearly knew what he was doing, but still.
But you know what? The thing is that when I was looking at it, I was like, is it rubbish as in trash, or is it like, because also it's like, because it's half truths and full cover-ups, right? So you're, yeah. Exactly. Like
it's both.
It's also the like,
it's a double entendre.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a double entendre because it's they're full of crap, so rubbish.
Like,
but also, like you're saying, like it's hyphenated rub hyphen ish, and ish is usually colloquially used for another way to say the S word. Yeah. So then you're just like they're just
like it's
crap.
It's doing.
I just meant that like
the same thing, I guess.
The other names for me, I was like, that could be someone's last name. And then I'd be like, oh, I see. Okay. This one was very clearly like, I'm making a play on, like, his name is a play on what he does.
I was going to also say, like, the thing that bothered me here, just like on a, like, y'all could have did better, this is disappointing kind of level, was how we talked about the trainee who got in order, like some organizing skills, and how like cool those skills would be to see in action. And it's very disappointing to see the department that has that is like boring on stage. Like there's so many ways to make organization like not only like useful for people in their everyday lives, but cool sounding to do it.
I was
it's
just
like,
about
where's
to
Marie
say
Kondo
that.
when you need
I was
her?
like, they need to get Marie Kondo up in there doing the presentation.
See, on my end, because I like
so
think of this department as like the magical DMV, I was thinking of like those like tutorial videos that were clearly made 20 years ago, and like it was like that would also be funny if you like put them up and they're like, oh, why do they have pagers? Like what's going yeah, you're just like what's going on in this video? But yeah.
I thought about it like that too. Okay, so then we are going through the presentations. A man from the Department of Hidden Places steps out of a top hat where he claims an entire city is kept. A woman from the Department of Dreams and Nightmares puts the entire front row of the theater to sleep with a snap of her fingers and then convinces them that they are all being chased by a giant evil teddy bear named Bubbles, Destroyer of Worlds, which reminded me of Daisy Quake.
Yeah. Also Stormageddon, Dark Lord of All.
Stormageddon, Dark Lord of All. Two grumpy old men from the Department of the Unexplained tell us absolutely nothing at all about what they do on principle. And a girl from the Department of Supernatural Health has us clap along as she sings a man out of a coma. I'm about to ask if Elsie has any idea how long that poor guy has been in a coma when shouts ring out from above us. Every head in the theater turns upward to find men and women in gray suits running across the walls. They leap into the air doing flips and twirls overhead. Wow. And then Agent Fiona comes out of nowhere, standing upside down on the ceiling and draws a bow and arrow. She fires a single arrow that explodes into a flash of light and branches out, destroying all of the plates that the people at the gray suits threw. And then they all land on stage, bowing to thunderous applause. That was amazing. And then Agent Magnus walks outside and says, I'm guessing you all know an agent when you see one, and I'm guessing a great many of you are thinking of trying out. Am I right? Well, what they don't tell you is that there ain't a more dangerous job in the whole bureau. Agents get hurt, good agents too, in nasty, gruesome ways. I know I'm wasting my breath. You'll all be after the glory and excitement that comes with wearing the gray suit. You all want to be real life superheroes. Am I right? Well, just don't say you weren't warned, and then turns around and walks away. Which I have not heard a more convincing speech in my life. Definitely don't want to be part of the bureau.
I had so many thoughts about this like whole scene. Like, one, I don't want to be an agent. I think maybe the Department of Hidden Places or like maybe
well, I'm wondering
Department of Unexplained might be interesting. Like. No, but I just am like not trying to be. I mean, trying like
they're not
even like the fact that they're cops aside. I'm just not trying to like be run.
But it's like even they could be couture suits.
No,
and
I'm
not
trying to
go
trying
outside
to run. I'm not trying to really do in danger.
I'm not trying to be putting myself in dangerous
like
situations
regularly. I personally, I just think like the whole wide world of magic and like that's what you want to do.
You're gonna be a
it
cop.
Just feels like it's been done, you know. Personally, but
when I read the passage, I was like, it reminds me of like the demonstrations you see in like other fantasy books that do stuff like this, like the Dauntless and Divergent, and how like people like it appeals to like outwardly like extroverted reckless people as well as introverted reckless people, and usually like in these books it's usually like an introverted slightly reckless person who's the protagonist, and they see this like presentation, they can see all this cool stuff ahead of this, and then this happens, the dangerous people come through, and then suddenly they found their
like, oh my god, I really want to like
to them.
Be famous for this. And I'm just like,
I want to throw myself to the wolves, and you're just
like from Amari's perspective.
Every single time this happens when I read a book, I'm
from
like,
Amari's
never me.
I
never.
think it makes a lot of sense. Like for the way that Amari thinks about it, I'm like, yes, obviously, this makes sense. If you chose something else, I'd be like, what are you doing? Yeah, like I'd be like, you're tripping. But myself personally, if I was there, that would not be where I was interested in. And like,
it would not appeal to me.
Yeah.
But I have to say that I was a little disappointed in Amari thinking right then, because she says, I'm thinking about trying out for a junior agent, and not just because of how cool the Supernatural Investigations presentation was. Everything about Quentin is there. It's where he works, where the people who knew him work, and even where the people who are searching for him will be. That makes sense. But I was disappointed when she was like, wow, a couple of them swing. Like I was clapping too. My heart's pounding with excitement. That was amazing. And I'm like, girl,
I think I would be that way.
You know
and then I'd be like, but it's not for me.
Waking someone up from a coma. That's amazing.
I think I would be like, wow, that was so exciting. Acrobat. That was my thing too. You put on a show. Good for you. Yeah. Oh, you talking about danger? No, thank you.
Yeah. Like I would clap for that. Yeah, no.
It's like
I'm like, I would be looking at the gymnastics that we're having. I'm like, I can't.
I'd be like, this is very
no.
Yeah, it's well done, but it's not for me. You know.
Yes, but as you're saying about the woman in a coma who's singing people out, like all these other cool things are happening, and I'm like, for me, it's like hard because like there's so many different abilities you could have, and so I'm sure the woman's thing was something like sings health or whatever, but I'm like, if you have an ability that is like fluid and can fit in any department, And is there a way to where you can hold access to multiple departments at once, or do you just have to train in the different departments and then just move around
They
depending
say
on
that
your skill
you
level
have to
after a
kind
amount
of
of time?
have a focus, right? Because
Yeah.
they mentioned earlier when she was first reading the 101 Careers, or when she was reading the invitation thing, that you can, if you decide that you don't want to do that, you can come back to the camp and start over
and do it. But I'm saying as a
is there
grown adult,
a
after you've been
lateral
there for
move? What is
some, you know what I
the
mean?
yeah, I don't maybe some
Yeah.
shadowing. But I just imagine now seeing a 40-year-old at the summer camp being I was in the Department of the Unexplained for 30 years and I can't explain it.
But I feel usually with those things, they just they'll find you the appropriate entry level job for your skill set that you've already built over the 40 years, and then just
that's
you'll
what we hope.
transition from there.
So
yeah.
But yeah, so anyway, so Amari's listen, that's where I'm gonna find the answers about Quentin. But Agent Magnus's warning felt especially meant for her, a reminder of what he just told her about putting herself in danger. So
I also want to say that Agent Magnus's, and I'm sorry, this might have been your point before I interrupted you earlier, Bayana. His speech was not an effective speech. Nothing that he just said. If anyone wanted to be he was using the same the whole propaganda and talking point and motif of superheroes to talk about the job, while also acting like he was trying to dissuade people from doing the job. Why would you call these people superheroes once again if you want to dissuade people from being in the job? And you being a grump, it makes you sound like a mysterious grump who's been there for years and not an actual person who actually cares.
The whole thing is
whether people join.
For one, he's not the head of the full department, so I do get it. This is his job. What's his name? Van Helsing was go over there, recruit some people. You know what I mean? And so everybody else is excited. They're I'm about to jump from the ceiling and do a flip and all this stuff. So he's just okay, well, I'm about to tell y'all, it's not all of this hullabaloo, but that's not, like you said, not effective. In my head, I'm if you really wanted, again, bringing back the projector, sex ed in 8th grade, when they just show a bunch of different STDs and they're do you want this? That was legitimately an experience I had. It's is this what you want? And I was just no, but also
no.
What is? And that's no, literally. I remember watching it and being nah, but this doesn't seem like it's gonna dissuade anyone. It just feels traumatic for no reason. But maybe that. I think it would get the people who were slightly thinking about it, but not fully, you know what I mean? But not after all that flipping and stuff. They would have to dead that and then just do, again, just this
and that's why I think
of this is the truth of being an agent. Do you want this? And then most kids would not sign up.
Do you see? Yeah, Agent
exactly,
Quentin and his partner missing in action,
in
all
Incredibles,
the years, all the injuries.
When Mr. Incredible sneaks into the thing and he finds out about all the girls that have been killed by the robot, so it had to be one of those where missing, dead, all that, and then I think it would have worked, but I think he's working within the parameters of
I feel that was already, they had their rehearsal and they did everything, and then he pulled an audible with his speech. He actually had a speech written that was supposed to be rah rah rah, and then everyone was standing there as Magnus is it ain't all that. But I do think it's interesting too, the kind of built-in cynicism that he has. You guys are already infatuated with the idea of superheroes. I know what's on the pamphlet. I know what you've read, and so therefore I don't foresee me.
But he's also been the face of it as well, which is funny.
I think there's a part of that is, to me, indicative of this whole world where they kind of just do this shorthand, everyone has had the same experiences, or everyone reads. There could be a couple people who, if I was in the bureau, right, saw that superhero whatever, and I was this is propaganda,
right?
And so you could have actually reached some people, but they just kind of assume that everyone.
I mean, it's harder when they're
these things
mostly
the same way.
preteens too, though. You know what I mean?
Right.
I think if I was 12,
and
I'd
I think
look
the
and take
vast
it at face
majority of them
value.
probably, I think the vast majority of them probably were like, yeah, this is awesome, this is superhero stuff, but like Amari says, like, I think he was talking to her.
Yeah.
And in that case, it kind of worked, right? So she sees Elsie scribble down Department of Magical Science as her top choice and then quickly fill in the other 4 slots. So she stares down at her card and scribbles junior agent in big letters and then scratch it out. And Elsie is like, I think you'd make a great agent. You're a Peters. You practically got hero in your genes. And Amari tells her bestie, maybe Agent Magnus is right. Quentin would want me to be safe. And my supernatural ability is illegal. They probably won't even let me in. Elsie says, do you want in? Because if the situation were reversed, I don't think there's anything anyone could say to Quentin that would convince him not to look for you. She's got a point. If my stubborn, hard-headed brother decided he was going to look for me, no one would be able to stop him. Elsie smiles and says, now go on and get yourself into supernatural investigation so we can start our own investigation.
Elsie
Did she say we?
Elsie's great.
Besties.
Couldn't be me, but I would have really been like, I'll move you on.
Well, Elsie's man in the chair.
But Elsie's got
Elsie
playing it right.
I'd be like, you need me to go to the library?
Yeah,
I got
Elsie's playing
it
right.
I'll do some research. Yeah.
I will analyze some things for you, okay? You need me to do some calculations?
So Amari says, you mean you'll help me find out what happened to Quentin? And Elsie says, I'll do whatever I can, promise. And just having one person with her is a huge weight off her shoulders. She feels instantly 10 times lighter. She jots down Department of Supernatural Investigations and does as her top choice and leaves the other 4 slots blank.
Reckless.
She was the introverted reckless person. The introverted reckless protagonist.
Chapter 11.
Play again.
It makes sense.
See, but here's my thing,
would not be. But also, I think that she could have been a little more strategic in that. Like, she could have thought about other departments that maybe would have
Department of Records and
like. That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. Like, I think it would have been interesting if she didn't get into the agents, but then there are other places that she could look because, like, all the people who are looking for Quentin are in that one department. Obviously, it's possible they're missing things, but like,
I don't think so, because if you think about it,
that
like
could
the
be the
Department
problem.
of Licenses and Records, like this is like, okay, my thing about like being a librarian. So everyone thinks like, oh, librarians just give you books and they know about what books are coming out or whatever. But there's like a whole plethora of like specialities and things that come with being a librarian, like being an archivist, right? Like when you hear about the like those like CIA papers that get declassified after 50 something years, like there could be stuff in the Department of Records and Licenses.
Yeah.
Could be stuff in the Department of the Unexplained that like, yeah, maybe someone from investigations found, but they just filed it away.
Right.
And you could be in the library piecing together what's happening without having to do flips and shit.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I think it could have I understand, at least from like her perspective and like as a Gryffindor 12-year-old, like or just a reckless little 12-year-old, like just being like, this is it, we're doing it live. Like that makes sense. But I think if she had taken another second to think about it, then she could have put other departments that could have helped her in her search, like just as backup plans, like plan Bs. It doesn't mean you can't get into the Department of Supernatural Investigations.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like you can make friends with somebody who's an agent, and you know, like you have Elsie to help in other ways. You could have somebody else, but
I mean, she's 12.
That's what I'm saying. Like she's 12. Like she's like, no.
But she also had
going hard or go home.
But she also has but she's only had the pamphlet for like a day. And within that day, had no time to actually give it a deep read. She has no prior information about the bureau, so she doesn't know. Like that would be her only way to get to know where she might want to go instead of the Department of Investigations. And when she was there, also had no time because Bertha over here be in the waters. So she just has had no time to even have a moment to gather any intel that she possibly could use to.
I do think it's interesting that they make them choose right after
it's really
the showcase is over instead of giving them the rest of the day or time to really sit with it. Like they're really relying on like
and
the impulsivity of like
impulsiveness.
Yeah,
because I was also thinking about the fact that like,
but also they're relying on people who having family background who know about it or whatever, like already knowing. And I think it would be interesting if this was just like this. You have like a week of shadowing the 4 different positions, and then you make your choice after you've had a chance to shadow the 4 things you selected.
Well, they don't really say like how long people, cadets or whatever they're called, usually get. Like Amari got her nomination the day before. It was already like homeboy was like, it's already too late. Like the camp starts tomorrow, right? Like so, this was also like fast tracked. Conceivably, even if you didn't have family in the bureau and this is your first time, you knew that you were nominated a month or 2 before the camp started, and you had the ability to like read these materials and stuff like that too. So there are a lot of different things.
And then also call, because didn't they give like you could call the guy
like
if you had questions.
They have a little bit more support than Amari received. But the one thing I was thinking about, and this is one of those like, she's 12, so I understand why she's not thinking about this, is that in light of the meeting after finding out that she's a magician, it feels like joining the Department of Special Investigations, so it makes sense in her search for Quentin, also is like another target on her, or makes her, like that's Van Helsing's department as well, and we already know how he feels about her. And so like me, I would be like, well, I already have this one mark against me, so I'm choosing the Department of Licenses and Records or whatever, and then like trying to sneak under the radar and like do what I can, but like stealthily. This goes back to her being an impulsive, reckless, Gryffindorish 12-year-old as well, or that's not what she thought. But also I don't think that like she's had time to really sit and formulate like, new plan now that I know that I'm a magician and everyone knows that I'm a magician and there's like this target on my back. So it would be interesting to it's interesting to like think about like how she would have responded if she had a little bit more time to absorb the information that she just got. Like she really literally went, this has all happened to her in like what, two days from like not knowing about the Bureau of Supernatural Affairs at all to like choosing a department. Like it has literally been like 2 days. So she doesn't have time to breathe.
She also seems like she has a confrontational personality type, like versus like I'm an avoidant personality type. So I'm like, I'm avoiding Van Helsing. Like I will stay as far away from that man as I possibly can. F that man. I don't want him around me every day. And I would have never wanted to be part of his department. However, she's confrontational. And I feel like she's not worried in the moment. Van Helsing doesn't even register to her in this moment when she's trying to figure out if she wants to decide to take this job, because she doesn't feel like it's something that she can't not confront at a later point. Like it's not even a thing for her. It would have been for me. I'd be like, oh no, I'm avoiding that man.
Okay, so who is your MVP for this chapter?
I said Elsie. I think. Yeah. Yeah, she's just a good friend. She was there to like saved her seat, like knowing that, not knowing what's going on with Amari, but knowing that she's like missing the beginning of this, so saving her seat and then kind of giving her that last push to really and like boost of confidence to like do what she came here to do.
I also gave Elsie as mine, as she is literally like the wind beneath Amari's wings, and the one support person that we've seen her have. Like it's only been a day and she's already willing like to be like gang with her. And it's sad. Like this is isn't this real life where it's sad that you like make a deep connection with someone because you're both from a hurt place, from like people didn't want to like spend time with me and like be my roommates, and you're down to be my roommate, and that's a decision that you made lightly. Like you're in it, and so I'm making this decision that's not made lightly either to support you. And I love that for them, but I
Yeah.
also hate the circumstances for them. And so it really is like heartwarming in all those different ways for me. The
Yeah. I mean, it
relationship.
reminds me of like, I think my best friend and I also made Elsie my MVP, but I think like my best friend in like elementary school, we had the same birthday. I think that was like the Lynch sealed it. We
Mm.
now are best friends. And then my current best friend who I met when I moved back to San Diego in high school. So I'm in like 10th grade, don't want to be here, like, you know, ripped away from whatever. It was her first year at this school too, and we both liked NSYNC. And that was like, all right, we go together now. And I think that that's so funny now. When I watch like Aminacha go to the playground or whatever, or like, and think about like myself, like how many like check marks like no new friends over here at my big age, but like how easy those connections are made. And then like, in some ways they break up just as easily, right? You make a best friend at the playground and then you never see them again. But then in other ways, it's like, you know, me and my best friend of damn near 20-ish something years, we both were in French class and we liked NSYNC. That was what we hit it off on. And like, and I also like the fact that like Elsie saved her seat not knowing, right? Like we don't know, like people that were kind of embedded in the bureau and stuff, like Elsie, who's kind of grown up around this, like know that like being a magician is illegal. So why wasn't Elsie's first thought, oh, she going to jail? I'm never gonna see her again. That sucks, you know? So just like having that faith that Amari was gonna come back to, I love that. Benched.
The chief director, just because I feel like she should have handled the like way that she kind of presented that information about Amari at the beginning of the chapter better. I don't know. It's one of those things where like they remind you often that it's like this is a workplace. It's not like they have this camp for kids, but it's not really a place for kids. And I feel like that's a little like this is like a moment where we kind of see that is like she doesn't really have, I don't know, like it's not a school with like a principal, right? And not that like, you know, we saw the principal at Amari school, so it's not like they're like gonna necessarily be better, but I think just the way that she's thinking about it is less on a this is a child kind of thing and more like this is a problem to be solved. And so yeah, I just feel like she could have handled that better and figured out a better way to support Amari while, you know, keeping an eye on her. I don't think that it like is necessarily bad for them to learn more about her magician status, but it's just like kind of how they're going about that is not great.
I also made the chief director my bench person, but for me it was because I had to find someone to take the blame for like yeah, I didn't like the announcement thing. I think it was very underhanded, and I think that it in the same way that Magnus's speech was ineffective for people who would want to join the department because it's not actually backed up with anything to help them think through it. Same for that announcement, and that like it doesn't deter anyone from having any prejudice against her as a magician. It's not really like showing any like institutional support. Like if my announcement, like even like a quick little rejoinder, like, and if my announcement is like if you go against my announcement or if you do something like in the opposite effect of what I've announced right now to like treat her the
Right.
same, there will be consequences. Like put a little bit of oomph behind it so people would actually do it. That was a thing for me. But the bigger thing for me in this moment was the fact that like they had taken Amari away from her peers, and they like yes, it was a necessary conversation, but perhaps it could have happened at a different time because she's already coming in here without the same amount of information as everyone else's, and you've kept her from this demonstration for her to like actually get grounded into the world and actually feel like she's part of this like cohort of kids who are all coming in together. And for me, it really brought up to me like Toni Morrison's quote about like racism is a distraction, and like their prejudice against the magicians is it's taking Amari away from being able to do her very basic things that she should be able to do as a trainee for the bureau. And there's no thought behind it. There's no like, oh, maybe we should be thoughtful for like how can we normalize her existence here, and giving her all the support, like the basic things, like practice what you're preaching. Basically, you say treat her like everyone else, actually treat her like everyone else, and then just set an appointment to talk to her on the side after y'all have all had a moment to mellow out a little bit. And I think that the chief director was probably the best person to put that on. But it's mostly all the directors, to be honest, but definitely the chief director.
And I benched the 2 unnamed men from the Department of the Unexplained just because, like, I get it, like, on principle or whatever, like, you're the Department of the Unexplained, so you're not going to explain things, but, like, how does that help?
I mean, maybe some kids like a little mystery.
Is it scientific? Am I putting myself in danger? You don't got to tell me exactly what's going on, but tell me what, like, am I going to be sitting in front of a desk? Are we
talking about aliens? Like, are we talking about like what is unexplained actually
or
cover?
the reason we have World War I? What is my role in that? They come back every year to apologize. Like, what do I have to talk to them
3 times a year?
3 times
Three times a year. 3 times.
So, am I involved in that? Is it like, am I joining like the Department of State where there are things that are classified, but it's, very civilized and a bunch of meetings and you get coffee and you have to understand like cultural practices and bowing correctly? Or am I in the CIA destabilizing nations? Like, which one is it? I'm not trying to raise my hand.
I mean, sometimes it's technically both.
It's unexplained.
There's not even either or, it's both.
I just feel like
they don't even explain is that a thing? You become a trainee, they don't even explain your actual like objectives to your job to you. They just like, here's what you're doing.
They just stood there and said, no, we ain't telling you shit. Pick us.
Yeah. Sounds very CIA to me.
That is like, you talk about like the reckless teens, like that's where they go in. At least the Department of Investigations, I know I'm becoming a cop. Like,
that's true.
I don't know what's going on over there. I found that to be very insufficient. So that's us for chapter 11.
Well, thank everyone for listening. We will not leave our chapters that we read unexplained. Join us next week when we have a chance to talk through and discuss chapter 12.
Wither Team is brought to you by Black Nerds Create. If you want to keep up with our other content, you can. Check out our website at blacknerdscreate.com. Follow us on Twitter at BLKNerdsCreate, at Yana Wrote It, at Robyn_Rambles, and at Porshèa. You can follow us on Instagram and Tumblr at Black Nerds Create and subscribe to our monthly magic newsletter. And don't forget to rate and review us wherever you're listening to this podcast.
Thanks, y'all.
Bye.
Bye.